The phrase "let it go" appears nowhere in the Buddhist texts. Not once. The word the Buddha used did not mean release your grip. It meant stop adding fuel to a fire. And that single difference turns the most useless advice you have ever received into a skill you can learn today. Everyone from your therapist to your meditation app has been telling you to let go. No one told you what the Buddha actually said to a woman carrying her dead child through the streets, because he did not say let go. He said something far more specific. And it worked. Her son had been dead for less than a day. She was still carrying him. The texts say she went from house to house in Savatthi asking for medicine. Not for grief, not for comfort, but for medicine, because she had not yet accepted that her child was beyond saving. No one could help her. Someone sent her to the Buddha, and the Buddha did not say let go. He said, "Bring me a mustard seed from any house where no one has ever died." She went. The first house she tried, they had lost a father. The second house, a sister. The third, a child like hers. She kept walking. By the 10th house, by the 20th, something had shifted. Not because anyone told her to release the body, not because she forced herself to accept it, but because the one belief that had been feeding her fire, that death had singled her out, that her loss was a mistake the universe had made, could not survive what she was hearing at every door. She put the child down at a charnel ground that evening, and the Pali texts do not describe this as letting go. They describe it as understanding. This is where the first crack appears in the advice you have been given your whole life. Everyone says let go. No one tells you how. And the reason no one tells you how is because letting go is not an action. It is not something you do. It is something that happens when you stop doing something else. The Pali word that English translates as clinging or attachment is upādāna, pronounced upādāna, and upādāna does not mean grip. It does not mean holding on. It is a fire word. It means fuel, the wood you feed to a flame. When the Buddha talked about your suffering, he was not describing a hand that will not open. He was describing a fire that you keep feeding, often without knowing you are doing it, and that changes everything. Because you cannot force a hand open. Anyone who has tried to make themselves stop caring, stop grieving, stop wanting, you know this. The harder you try to release, the tighter the grip becomes. You can neither think your way into letting go nor pretend that you have when you have not, but you can stop adding wood to a fire. That is a different instruction entirely. That is something you can learn. Kisa Gotami did not let go of her son. She stopped feeding the belief that his death was an error. The fire, her desperate, house-to-house search for medicine that did not exist, went out on its own, not because she forced it. Because there was nothing left to burn. But there is a second mistake people make about letting go. And it is the opposite of the first. In the Alagadupama Sutta, the Buddha tells a story about a man who builds a raft to cross a dangerous river. The current is strong. The far shore is invisible. He gathers grass and sticks and branches, lashes them together, and paddles across using his hands and feet. He reaches the other shore. He is alive because of this raft. Now, does he pick the raft up, put it on his head, and carry it wherever he goes? The Buddha says, no, that would be foolish. The raft served its purpose. You leave it at the shore. But here is what most people miss about this story. You do not throw the raft away in the middle of the river. The scholar, monk Thanissaro Bhikkhu, makes this point with a precision that changes the entire teaching. He says that beginning practitioners should cling more strategically, not less. Grief is a raft. Anger can be a raft. Even attachment, for a season, is the thing that gets you across. The mistake is not clinging. The mistake is clinging after the raft has served its purpose. And here is the strange part. In 2001, a neuroscientist at Washington University identified a network in the brain that activates when you are doing nothing, when you are sitting quietly. not focused on any task. They called it the default mode network. And what the default mode network does, more than anything else, is feed loops. It replays conversations. It rehearses arguments. It revisits losses. It reaches for the same thought, over and over, like a hand reaching for wood and placing it on a fire that should have gone out hours ago. The Buddha described this mechanism 2,500 years before the fMRI confirmed it. He just used a different word. He called it upādāna, fuel. Your brain does not cling because it is broken. Your brain clings because clinging is its default, and the instruction is not to override the default. It is to see it and stop feeding it. If this is changing how you think about the advice you have been given, if you are starting to see the difference between forcing yourself to release and learning to stop feeding, subscribe. This channel finds what the Buddha actually said and shows you why it is more useful than the version you were given. Because what comes next is the most devastating story in the entire Pali canon. A woman who lost everything, not one person, not two, but everyone she loved, in a single day. And what the Buddha said to her was not let go. It was not move on. It was not accept. It was something no one ever quotes in a meditation app. And it is the most practical instruction on suffering ever recorded. Her name was Patacara. She was from a wealthy family in Savatthi, but she had eloped with a servant and was living in a small village far from home. She was pregnant with her second child when she decided to travel back to her parents. Her husband followed. On the road, a storm came. Her husband went to clear brush to build a shelter. A snake bit him. He was dead before she reached him. She kept walking with the two children. The rain had swollen a river that crossed the road. She could not carry both children across at once. She left the older boy on the near bank and carried the infant through the current to the far side. She set the baby down and turned back for her son. Midstream, she saw a hawk descend. "It took the infant," she screamed. And the older boy, hearing her scream, tried to wade into the river toward her. The current took him. She reached the far bank with nothing. When she arrived at Savatthi, a stranger told her that her parents' house had collapsed in the same storm. Her mother, her father, and her brother were dead. The texts say she lost her mind on the spot. She wandered the streets without clothes, without direction, without language. People threw garbage at her and called her mad. She wandered into Jetavana, where the Buddha was teaching. His students tried to drive her away. The Buddha said, "Let her come," and he did not tell her to let go. He did not tell her to accept. He did not offer comfort. He said, "Sister, recover your mindfulness." That was the instruction. Not release, not surrender, not acceptance. Recover your awareness. Come back to the thing you can still see, still hear, still feel, right now, in this moment, before the stories start again. The Pali word the texts use for what happened to Patacara over the following months is not letting go. It is vasaga, pronounced vosaga. And vasaga does not mean dropping. It does not mean detaching. The closest English word is giving back, returning something to where it belongs. Patacara did not abandon her grief. She gave it back, not to a god, not to the universe, to the simple fact that the people she loved had been temporary, as she herself was temporary, and that holding their absence as a personal injustice was fuel she no longer needed to carry. She became one of the foremost nuns in the entire Sangha. She taught other women who had lost children. The texts say she was the greatest among those who knew the Vinaya, the code of discipline. She did not get there by letting go. She got there by stopping the fuel. One piece at a time, over months, through practice, through seeing, through the slow and specific work of not adding wood to a fire that wanted to keep burning. Now, the Buddha identified exactly 4 types of fuel. He did not say, "Let go of everything." He said, "Look at what you are feeding." And he named the 4 fires by name: The first is sensory clinging, upādāna. This is the fuel of wanting the next experience to fix the current one. You buy something. You feel better for a day. The feeling fades. You buy again. You are not broken. You are feeding a fire that cannot be satisfied because satisfaction is not what fire does. Fire burns. The second is view clinging, upādāna. This is the fuel of needing to be right. You replay an argument in your head at 2 in the morning, not because the argument matters anymore, but because your brain needs the other person to be wrong. You are not anxious. You are feeding. The third is rite and ritual clinging, upādāna. This is the subtlest trap. It is the belief that a specific practice, a specific meditation technique, a specific routine, a specific app will save you. The Buddha said, even the raft is fuel if you carry it past the shore. Even mindfulness can become something you cling to instead of something you use. You have a dead person's phone number in your contacts right now. You will never call it, but you cannot delete it, because deleting it feels like killing them a second time. That is not love. That is fuel. You are not keeping their memory alive. You are feeding the belief that your pain is the last thread connecting you to them. The fourth is self-doctrine clinging, upādāna. This is the deepest fuel. It is the story of who you are, the narrative you feed every day. I am a person who cannot let go. I am a person who always gets hurt. I am a person who needs control. That story is not you. It is fuel. And as long as you keep feeding it, the fire keeps burning. 4 fuels, 4 fires. And the instruction is not to extinguish all of them at once. It is to look, honestly, without judgment, and ask, which one am I feeding right now? That is the fuel audit. It is not poetry. It is not philosophy. It is a diagnostic tool that is 2,500 years old and still more precise than anything your therapist has written on a whiteboard. And 2,500 years ago, the Buddha stood on a hilltop called Gaya Head in front of 1,000 men whose entire lives had been spent feeding fire, literally. They were jatila, fire-worshipping ascetics. They had tended sacred flames for decades. Fire was their god. Fire was their practice. Fire was the center of everything they believed. The Buddha looked at them and chose their language. All is burning, he said. The I is burning. Forms are burning. I consciousness is burning. Whatever is felt, pleasant, painful, neither pleasant nor painful, that too is burning. Burning with what? With the fire of passion, with the fire of aversion, with the fire of delusion. He did not tell them to put out the fire. He did not say stop burning. He told them to see what was feeding it. And this is the detail that changes everything. The word he used for the feeding was the same word they used for the wood they placed on their sacred flames. Upādāna, fuel. He was speaking to men who understood fuel better than anyone alive, and he told them, you have been feeding this fire your entire lives, not just the one in front of you, the one inside you. The Pali word for what happens when the fuel stops is nibbāna, pronounced ni-bach-na, and nibbāna does not mean paradise. It does not mean heaven. It does not mean escape. It means the cooling. It means the going out, not the going out of life. The going out of the fire that has been consuming you because you kept feeding it. 1,000 monks attained liberation that day, not by forcing anything, not by letting go, by seeing clearly what they had been doing and stopping. And this is not only ancient metaphor. In 2015, a team at Oxford published a study on the default mode network, the part of your brain that feeds thought loops when you are not focused on a task. They found that people who ruminate, who replay losses, rehearse conflicts, return again and again to the same pain, show hyperactive default mode network connectivity. The brain is literally adding fuel. And when experienced meditators were scanned, researchers found the opposite pattern, not suppression, not forced quiet, reduced feeding. The network still activated, but the meditators did not follow it. They did not add the next log. The fire, deprived of fuel, did what fire always does. It went out. The Buddha did not invent a metaphor. He described a mechanism. And 25 centuries later, a machine confirmed it. So here is what the Buddha actually taught about letting go. Not the version on the poster, not the version in the app. The version that survived 2,500 years because it works. First, the word for clinging, upādāna, means fuel. The instruction was never release your grip. It was stop adding wood to the fire. You do not need to force your hand open. You need to see what your hand keeps reaching for. Second, you do not let go of everything at once. The raft carries you across the river. Grief serves a purpose. Anger serves a purpose. Even attachment for a season is the thing that keeps you moving. The practice is not eliminating these things. The practice is noticing when they have finished their work and not carrying them past the shore. Third, you are not someone who cannot let go. You never were. You are someone who has been feeding a fire without seeing the fuel. And the moment you see it, the moment you catch your own hand reaching for the wood, you are already different. Not because you forced a change, because you understood something. The same way Kisa Gotami understood at her 20th door. The same way Patacara understood watching water pass over her feet one evening after months of practice. The same way 1,000 fire worshippers understood on a hilltop at Gaya. Most people choose pain over forgetting. They keep hurting because hurting feels like the last proof that the love was real. But pain was never the proof. Love is. Even when people we love die, our relationship with them does not. Letting go of grief is not letting go of the person. It is letting go of the fuel. The belief that your pain is the last thread connecting you to them. It is not. Your love is the thread, and love does not need fire to survive. There is one question I want to leave you with. What is the one thing you have been told to let go of, but could not? Look at it now, not with the instruction to release it, with the question the Buddha would ask. What are you feeding? What fuel are you adding? Maybe every morning, maybe every night, maybe right now, that keeps this particular fire burning. Name it in the comments. Not for me, for you, because the seeing is where it starts. If this landed differently than you expected, if the Buddha's actual words changed something, subscribe. There is more in these ancient texts than anyone has told you. And the next video goes even deeper. The Buddha did not teach letting go. He taught seeing clearly. And when you see clearly, letting go is what happens on its own.